Welcome to our channel. Today we're diving into a serious topic, the top 10 countries currently experiencing significant conflict. Now I know what you're thinking, John, conflict, in economy? And you'd be right to be surprised. There's a special on discounted socks happening on QVC right now that is absolutely bananas. But sadly these conflicts don't care about good deals. These conflicts have profound humanitarian impacts, and it's crucial to stay informed, even if it means looking away from a 12-pack of tube socks for 10 minutes. First up, we have Syria, a country that has, unfortunately, become synonymous with conflict over the past decade. It all began in 2011 with peaceful protests against the government. Fast forward to 2024 and we're looking at a full-blown civil war, with a guest list longer than a Kardashian Christmas card. You've got the Syrian government, a mosaic of rebel groups, ISIS trying to make a comeback, Kurdish forces and the international community, Russia, Iran, the US, Turkey, all stirring the pot. The result? Well, it's grim. Over 500,000 people dead, millions displaced, forced to flee their homes, becoming refugees in a world that seems increasingly reluctant to welcome them. The humanitarian crisis is dire, with people lacking basic necessities like food, water, and healthcare. Syrian civilian, I've seen my home destroyed, my family torn apart. We need the world to see our suffering and help us find peace. Next, we travel to Afghanistan, a landlocked country with a history as complex as its intricate carpets, and sadly, just as knotted with conflict. Since the 1970s, Afghanistan has been caught in a seemingly endless cycle of war and instability. The US intervention in 2001, while initially aimed at dismantling al-Qaeda, ended up fueling further chaos, and things haven't exactly calmed down since the US withdrawal in 2021. The Taliban, now back in control, are grappling with a shattered economy, a resurgent ISIS-K launching attacks, and a population grappling with the trauma of decades of war. The human cost? Staggering. Thousands of civilians killed, millions displaced, and a generation growing up under the shadow of violence. Afghan soldier, we fight every day, not just for our land but for our families, our future. We need the world to understand our struggle and stand with us. Now let's talk about Yemen, a country that's often referred to as the Forgotten War. Since 2014, Yemen has been ravaged by a brutal civil war, pitting the Houthi rebels against the internationally recognized government. But this is not just a domestic squabble. This conflict has become a proxy war, with Saudi Arabia and the UAE backing the government, and Iran allegedly supporting the Houthis. The result? Imagine the worst humanitarian crisis in the world, then multiply it by like 1,000. That's Yemen. Millions are on the brink of famine, with children bearing the brunt of the suffering. Cholera outbreaks are rampant, healthcare systems have crumbled, and the economy is in shambles. Yemeni aid worker, every day we see children suffering, families torn apart. We need the world to remember Yemen, to help us bring relief and hope to those who need it most. Chapter 4. Somalia, a nation adrift. Our next stop is Somalia, a country that's been grappling with conflict for longer than some of you watching this have been alive. Since the collapse of its central government in 1991, Somalia has been plagued by violence, instability, and humanitarian crises. You've got the Somali government desperately trying to assert control, but often outgunned and outmaneuvered. Then there's Al-Shabaab, the militant Islamist group that's been terrorizing the country for years. And let's not forget the various clan militias, all vying for power and resources. The human cost of this endless conflict is staggering. Millions have been displaced from their homes, forced to live in overcrowded camps, with limited access to basic necessities. The African Union mission in Somalia, with the support of the international community, has made some progress in pushing back against Al-Shabaab. Chapter 5. Ukraine, a war redefining Europe. And now, we turn our attention to Europe, where the ongoing war in Ukraine has sent shockwaves across the continent and beyond. Since Russia's invasion in 2022, the world has watched in horror as this conflict unfolds, with devastating consequences for Ukraine and implications for global security. On one side, you have Ukraine, a nation fighting valiantly for its survival, its people displaying incredible resilience in the face of aggression. On the other side, there's Russia, a global power led by Vladimir Putin, a man who seems to have mistaken the 21st century for a particularly tense game of Risk. The human cost of this war is immeasurable. Thousands of civilians have been killed, cities lie in ruins, and millions have fled their homes, seeking refuge in neighboring countries.
The world must not forget us. We need your support, your voices, and your actions. Together we can hope for a brighter future.
Chapter 6: South Sudan, a nation divided. Our journey through global conflict zones now takes us to South Sudan, a nation grappling with the scars of a civil war that erupted just years after its hard-won independence in 2011. At the heart of this conflict is a power struggle between rival political factions, often drawn along ethnic lines. You've got government forces loyal to President Salva Kiir, clashing with opposition groups aligned with former Vice President Riek Machar. Add to that a complex web of armed militias, each with their own agendas, and you've got a recipe for chaos. The human cost of this conflict is staggering. Hundreds of thousands have been killed, millions have been displaced, and the country is facing a dire humanitarian crisis.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of suffering in South Sudan, but we can't afford to turn away. We need to educate ourselves about the conflict, support organizations working to provide humanitarian aid, and demand that our leaders prioritize peace and stability in the region.
Chapter 7: Libya, the aftermath of revolution. Our next stop is Libya, a nation still grappling with the aftermath of the 2011 revolution that ousted longtime dictator Muammar Gaddafi. Since Gaddafi's fall, Libya has been mired in a chaotic civil war, with various factions vying for control. You've got the UN-backed Government of National Unity, trying to assert its authority but facing constant challenges. Then there's the Libyan National Army led by Khalifa Haftar, a former Gaddafi ally turned rival. And if that wasn't enough, you've got a whole host of militias, each with their own agendas, adding fuel to the fire. The result? Libya is a mess. The economy is in shambles, infrastructure is crumbling, and the country has become a hub for human trafficking and other illicit activities. The humanitarian situation is dire, with millions in need of assistance. Chapter 8: Iraq, Scars of War and Terror. Our journey through conflict zones now takes us to Iraq, a nation that has known more than its fair share of war and turmoil. From the US-led invasion in 2003 to the rise and fall of ISIS, Iraq has been caught in a seemingly endless cycle of violence. The US invasion, while touted as a liberation, unleashed chaos and instability that continue to plague Iraq today. The power vacuum created by the toppling of Saddam Hussein's regime allowed for the rise of sectarian violence and the emergence of groups like ISIS. While ISIS has been territorially defeated, they continue to pose a threat, carrying out sporadic attacks. Meanwhile, the Iraqi government is struggling to rebuild the country, provide basic services to its citizens, and heal the deep divisions that have fueled so much violence. The human cost of this endless conflict is immeasurable. Hundreds of thousands have been killed, millions have been displaced, and the country is grappling with a severe humanitarian crisis. Chapter 9: Central African Republic, a cycle of violence. The Central African Republic is trapped in a cycle of violence and instability. In 2012, the Salika coalition ousted President Francois Bozize. This led to the formation of anti-Balaka militias. Ethnic tensions and power struggles ensued. The country is on the brink of collapse. The human cost is staggering. Thousands killed, millions displaced. The international community must step up. Chapter 10: Democratic Republic of Congo, a nation held hostage. The Democratic Republic of Congo, blessed with resources, is cursed by endless conflict. Decades of violence stem from ethnic tensions, resource competition, and power struggles. Groups like M23 commit horrific abuses, including mass killings and child soldier recruitment. Millions are displaced, lives lost, and the country faces a dire humanitarian crisis. Sexual violence is rampant, with women and girls suffering the most. The international community must address root causes, support peace building, and hold abusers accountable. Thank you for watching. If you found this video informative, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more content. The world is a complex place filled with both beauty and despair. While it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of human suffering, it's important to remember that we can all make a difference. Stay informed about global issues, support organizations working to make a positive impact, and use your voice to advocate for change. Even small actions can have a ripple effect, so let's all do our part to create a more peaceful and just world. Remember, apathy is the enemy of progress. Stay informed and stay safe.